𝐿𝐴𝐤𝐥𝐲. I am your host, Christene Marie. I am joining you tonight with this topic around how to live fully, how to live life to the utmost, how to live a beautiful life. It's funny, I feel this almost like deep peace tonight. It's just been a really fulfilling day. It's been a day where this is actually the fourth time I'm going live today, and I've never done this 4 times. And I feel this deep, I guess, contentment, and also I feel like I really lived today. So many different things and ways. So one of those was I learned a couple lessons today. I realized I just felt like this morning's vertical alignment, I actually got what I needed in a very real way. One of the things, so for those of you who don't know, when I say vertical alignment, it's the principle of bringing my mind, body, soul, spirit, behaviors, moods, everything, like all this disparate entities, and bringing them into alignment under the hierarchical order of the ideal of who I want to be, underneath and subservient to who God says that I am, and who God says I should, who he says I should be, but in terms of how he created me to be. And this morning during vertical alignment, one of the things that I'm really committed to is not leaving. So that's the principle of vertical alignment. The practice of vertical alignment for me is every single morning taking about 60 to 90 minutes to be quiet, to journal, to pray, to read, to awaken every part of me. I think of it as turning on and almost like activating the different intelligences, my intellectual intelligence, my physical intelligence. What does my body have to tell me? My emotional intelligence, my spiritual intelligence. And throughout that 60 to 90 minutes, the goal is to really turn online these different parts of me, that each one has data, each one effectively has wisdom for me to learn from. And also, it's not just wisdom. Sometimes it's actually old data that I need to replace and re-update. So this morning practice of the principle of vertical alignment, bringing all of these parts of me, turning them online, and then bringing them into alignment underneath my ideal of how I want to live and who I want to be, and underneath ultimately a superordinate principle of who does God say that I am. And so the practice of that is 60 to 90 minutes, and I've made a commitment to myself and to God that I'm not going to leave until I have something like an aha moment, a moment of like aha, or oh my gosh, like something that I feel changed to a certain extent. It doesn't need to be a massive aha, but it needs to be something that shifts a part of me, whether it's my thinking, whether it's my emotions, whether it's my spirit or my physical body. I will not leave the practice of vertical alignment until, one, I know that I am fully in alignment, and two, that I've also really learned something. Like, that is the time where I'm taught from within. The Latin root of intuition is intuere, which means to be taught from within. And so the morning practice of the principle of vertical alignment, that's really the time where it's like so sacred for me. Like, I have to be diligent. I have to be disciplined. I have to pursue that time as though I have the honor and respect for what it can be, what it has been in the past. And the thing about having these practices that we engage in on a daily basis is that sometimes we can really lose an honor for the impact that they have on us and in us, and how we're changed by them. And so this morning, I just felt, I woke up this morning with a real intention. Like yesterday morning during my vertical alignment, I actually felt very much so like God encouraged me, like, you know what you need to be doing, and you're not doing it. And so I was like, oh, like, all right, I have to take this seriously, because on the other side of obedience, whether it's obeying my word to myself, or it's obeying something that I feel called to do, or obeying a word that I gave to somebody else, on the other side of that obedience, on the other side of that commitment and that honor to our word, whoever we gave it to, there's a sense of blessing, and there's a sense of joy and a sense of fulfillment that comes from that And really it's at almost like a molecular level, it's, man, I did the thing. I did the thing that I said I was going to do. And there's a sense of pride there and ownership. And in that sense of pride and ownership also comes this almost like straightening of our shoulders, and like straightening and standing taller and being like, yeah, I'm doing the work. I'm keeping my word, and I'm proud of who I am today here in this moment. And not and, I was about to say not every single day we can feel that way, but I actually think we can when we're intentional to self-induce it. I was actually I was a guest on a podcast probably in September of last year. And I forget. Oh, it was, it's so funny. I think I was actually talking about going live. So it might have been like July. And I told this woman, I was like, I made a commitment to myself to go live every single day. And I've been doing it. And what I found was that the next time I told myself I was going to do something, it was actually easier to keep my word because I've been establishing a track record. And she was like, "I bet you're celebrating yourself on a daily basis." And I was like, "What?" And she was like, "I bet you're actually taking the time to cheer yourself on. Like, good job." And I had never thought to do that, but what I realized is that so much of the time we are actually outsourcing dopamine hits to everybody else around us. Hey, come and increase my dopamine. Give me a dopamine hit. Sugar. We're even working out, which is a good thing. Songs and even singing can be a dopamine hit. But am I actually intentionally pursuing, the phone is a dopamine hit. So am I curating my own dopamine hits, or am I outsourcing them to everyone and everything outside of me, where if I want to feel happy, I actually need to go and pursue something external? Or have I taken the time and intentionality to actually like almost self-administer a reward for, frankly, the behavior that I want to self-perpetuate? We see this in kids all the time. We engage with kids in a very particular way, and then we stop doing what's working. It's like Jim Collins in the book Good to Great. He talks about this with businesses. It's like these businesses grow to be good companies. They're stable, they have predictable revenue streams. They're solid. They're good. But then when they want to get to the great level, a lot of times they actually stop doing what was good, what was working, and then they pursue a completely new way. They're like, we're just going to completely destroy everything and start over to become a great company. But then they stop doing the things that made them good in the first place. It's like that with us. The things in childhood that were actually staple and core to our development, to our nurture, that helped us in the best of ways, we move away from in adulthood for whatever reason. And then what I'm realizing now in this season of my life is like, okay, how do I actually need to reinstate some of these behaviors and practices that I had in childhood? And how do I bring that into my life today to live more fully? And so, a couple of the things that I've learned along the way over the last couple of years, one of those is asking why, just being so curious and removing the lens of judgment and putting on the lens of curiosity. That's number one. Number two is some semblance of order and structure, but then having that structure. We talked about this last night, how discipline really is the vehicle of change. Inside the structure of discipline, we experience the opportunity to really have a lot of change in our lives. And so the way that this looked like in practice that initially gave me this thought was, I was listening to my sister talk about my niece, and she was saying all of the things my niece is doing. She's on the leadership team at school. She's leading chapel at her school, where she's singing and playing piano, and she's taking singing lessons, and she's being mentored literally to be a leader. She's the secretary of the entire middle school. And I was like, oh my gosh, she's doing so much. And what I realized is that her days look exactly the same every single day. There's a predictability about her schedule, which allows for the flourishing and the freedom of cultivation of who she wants to be. So she gets to choose the extracurricular activities. She has autonomy. So that's the third thing. So first, being curious and asking why, and putting on the lens of almost like a child, and just the wide-eyed wonder at the world and at each other, where we can look at each other and just want to know, like, tell me who you are, rather than me assigning labels or placing judgment on you and assuming I know who you are when you're so unique and so different. And I have no idea, and I can't wait to know you. That's the power of why in so many ways, is that it takes us deeper into ourselves and into each other. Two is having a structure and adding in a repeatable, predictable schedule. And then third is the autonomy. It's actually so important for children in the neurological development to have autonomy. There was a study done where they examined two sets of children. One set of children grew up in a very affluent home where they frankly had everything that they needed. They had very clear expectations on the grades that they should get. They were expected to go to these Ivy League schools. In one sense, they were living the good life. And then you look at the other set, which is children growing up in there was a lack of stability in terms of where's our food coming from? Is dad coming home? Is mom going to be home tonight? Like just a complete and utter lack of stability for where food and survival was going to be coming from. The neurological pathways in both children actually were very similar to each other because both of them lacked autonomy to choose. The kids in the latter example lacked the autonomy to choose, oh, let me look at the food I have and choose my options. Whereas the other children were being told how to live. Like it was actually so structured that it was squelching their freedom and they were living as like trapped inside their own home. And the neurological pathways were firing very similarly for both of these kids because both of them lacked freedom and autonomy to be free and become who they could be. It was like, oh, you're supposed to be this way, act accordingly. And then for the other kids, it wasn't even an option or something to think about because it was like thinking of survival was their primary focus. So thinking about how to live life so fully, going back to this morning, and just one of the things that stood out to me first thing in my vertical alignment practice was how much am I actually doing the things that I know I should do? Am I actually living according to the systems? And it's like it's actually I think systems is a really good way to put it for me, at least. Am I actually living in according to the systems that I know work for me? I know that my mornings are to be honored. Am I honoring them? I know that having the time after my vertical alignment to check emails and catch up and really get ahead of the day is really important. Am I honoring that? Am I doing it? And these containers of time, I was on a mastermind call a couple weeks ago, and he talked about having containers where if you just set the time aside, you can do whatever you want to within that time frame. And there's a lot of freedom. Again, it's the discipline. You've got the disciplined structure of that time set aside, but then the autonomy to operate within it. You can do whatever. Have at it. and I love that concept because for those of us who want to rebel against the systems a little bit, there's actually an excitement and a freedom that is resulted from, oh, I've just got this time set aside so that I can do what I feel called to, what I want to do. And so this whole conversation tonight about living a life fully and to the utmost and living a beautiful life, so much of it comes from having the peace of mind that I'm like, am I operating from a place of peace? Because once I know that I'm doing what I have to do, then I get to go to almost to the next level of really just being so peaceful in the moment. Like what my needs are that I have to accomplish, whether it's for clients or employees or myself or my family. I know that I'm structured and scheduled enough to do those things. And then with all of the additional time, even if it's a half hour, even if it's an hour, 60 minutes, with the additional time, that is the time that I get to take for me and really like invest in me. And it is so, so beautiful to be approaching life from the position of peace because from that place, we can be so present in all of the moments. To live a beautiful life. I've been thinking about this a lot today just because honestly, it was a really, really productive day. I got a lot done and I really loved what I did and the deliverable for the client and then the conversation with a colleague and all of those little points. But because there was a baseline of peace, because I started out my morning kind of on top of my day, then I could really enter into the moment. And the thing that's really interesting is that it's not just entering into the moment with work or entering the moment with a conversation. Like I had two different, one recording today and then one live today, both of which were incredible conversations. And it required a semblance of presence for me to be so focused to be able to ask the questions, to draw them out. But then also later in the afternoon, I had a moment of potential conflict with somebody where it was me. I was starting to feel a little anxious, and it required a semblance of presence so that I could actually know what was going on inside me, catch it, and communicate it. Again, the definition of emotional intelligence is to become aware, understand, and then express one's own emotions. And the purpose of doing that is for connection. It's for love. We're not just running around like rabid animals spewing emotions. It's like, I want to love you better, and I want to be operating from a place of love rather than a place of fear. And so in order for me to do that, let me be aware of what's going on inside me, understand it myself, so that I can articulate it and be a good partner in return. And so with the lens of that, in terms of being present at multiple points throughout the day, the One Thing by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan, the book The One Thing, talks about how we start the day with a full battery pack. We've got 100% of energy. But then as we live throughout the day, just like our phones, it slowly starts dying, and we go from 100 to 99 to 98, and then we're down to 80, and then we're down to 70, and then we're down to 60. And so there's this dwindling and drainage of energy that is so important for us to keep our thumb on the pulse of how are we, because what ends up happening is that we get to 5 o'clock, we put down our laptops, we shut down our day, and then we go and we engage with our families, the very people that we say we're doing all of this for. And then we've got 50% left, 40, 30% left, because we gave it all away at the beginning of the day. And so, in order for us to talking about how to live life fully, there's moments, again, to my friend's analogy, containers of time, putting aside time blocks to really research and recharge. My dad would do this. It was the best example. He would come home. He was a third generation painting and finishing business owner. He would come home to 6 children. God freaking bless my parents. He would come home to 6 kids, and he would lay on the middle of the floor and take a 20-minute power nap. And that was like it was his transition from professional to personal, and it was also his recharge. He woke up and he was 100% there. It wasn't that he had 100% of energy, but he was 100% present. And when we're 100% present, it allows for us to not be dragging the past with us. It allows for us to not be thinking about the future, but really be here. Emotional energy is currency in family so often. You can give your kids your time, but if you don't have emotional energy, it doesn't matter. You're sitting there on the floor playing with them, and you're just like zoned out or checked out, or worse yet, on your phone while you're sitting with them. And so emotional presence, emotional energy really is the currency, not even just for other people, but also for ourselves. I was sitting tonight having dinner, and I was just, we had a fire, and I was looking at the fire, and I was like, man, like this is, and played music in the background. I just had this thought. I was like, this is a movie moment. This is a movie moment. And I get to create that. Each one of us gets to create beautiful moments in our lives that would be like a movie or be like our ideal. Like, that's the thing that's so important. Do we know what our ideal is to then go and create it? We have so much power to create a life that we love. And so, in terms of how to live life to the fullest, are we employing the curiosity like that of a child, the ability to be fully present? Are we recharging at various points throughout the day? And then are we curating moments? Are we so present and so intentional with every single moment that I know who I want to be in this moment, in this relationship? I know what I want it to look like. And then the last thing of how to live so fully and so present and living life to the utmost, also letting go so that when it doesn't, I'm able to maintain peace. David Hawkins, I've talked about him a good amount. I freaking love this man. He writes this book, Letting Go, and he assigns numerical value to emotions. And his concept is that effectively, if we're maintaining an emotional frequency, and frequency didn't mean much to me until I read this book. I'm like, okay, I can maintain that emotional level, that emotional numerical value, or I can drop it, or I can raise it. And so if someone comes in who has a different emotional frequency than me, either up or low, Am I able to actually be really strong in myself to maintain my emotional level and not drop down to meet theirs? Am I even do I even have a strong enough emotional baseline where they're actually like knows like? It's like magnets. Do I actually kind of magnetize them up to my level? Like that concept of being able to do that is actually predicated in the concept of his book, which is titled Letting Go. Like really truly letting go of the expectations, letting go of even what we had hoped for in that moment. Earlier today, Robert Lee came on the Knowing Show, and we just had such an amazing. It was such an amazing conversation. Go listen to it for those of you who didn't listen and didn't join. It's the one right before this. Robert Lee. He was talking about. Oh, I forgot. Never mind. I lost my train of thought. Thankfully, that rarely happens. Hmm. I don't remember. I must not have been supposed to say it. So I'll go ahead and just wrap up there in terms of how to live a beautiful life. What I found that it really is the balance. Oh, this is it. This is what I talked about him about. One of the most powerful things for me, actually, my therapist taught me this, the conjunction and, which sounds so simple, and the irony, and allows for two seemingly opposing positions, attitudes, behaviors, mindsets to coexist. So, grief and joy, truth and nuance, all of these different elements of life where your experience exists with mine and what I'm wanting and searching for and hoping for, and something even better than that. There's this country song where it says, "Thank God for unanswered prayers." It's kind of like that. We know what we want. We're intentionally curating and pursuing the curation of moments that are beautiful in alignment with the life that we want to live. Yet we're also open to something being better, something being different. And we're just curious. Again, it kind of is like now a full loop. Now we go back to the childhood wonder of why. Oh, being curious. I wonder why this isn't going the way that I thought it would. And removing judgment. Because when we have a desired outcome, but it's tied to judgment if it doesn't happen, then we're gripping tightly and we're actually not open handed to receive something like truly perhaps better than we thought. So, with that, I am going to jump over to the chat and say hello to my friends. Brian, howdy, good to see you. Sudham, Manuel, good to see you. I am just jumping in. Drew Young, I'm going to scroll up a little bit just to catch up. Jason Jones, hi from Miami. Oh, I love Florida. I did go to Miami and I found this like gorgeous little, it felt like a very retro area and it was just really, really beautiful. I'm just hopping over to Instagram. 123 Santi says, what is your process or steps for doing your vertical alignment? I love that question. Actually, if you're interested, if you go to verticalalignment.com, it's totally free. It was something that I created this July for my birthday. I made 21 days of vertical alignments, and the process, there's 5 different steps. ALIGN, align. That's the align process. A stands for awaken. So it's awakening the physical body and really kind of getting the physical body online. How am I physically, how am I doing? And just really kind of getting it awake and alive first thing in the morning. L is listen to the emotions. How am I actually feeling? Like what are the sensations I'm getting in my body? So we have to awaken our body to then be able to know what the sensations are that are taking place in it. I, illuminating the truth, and this is awakening the spirit, because at the end of the day, our thoughts and our emotions are both just data sets. Neither one is in the helm of it driving the ship. We are like who God made us to be. That's the goal, is that our wounded parts, our protective parts, emotions, everything else, they can all give us data, but nothing else is in the driver's seat other than you and me. Like our true, authentic core selves, effectively the part of us that God created that is beneath the layers of identity that was handed to us or inherited. So the goal is to kind of get back to that core true self in that moment. And the illumination of truth really helps with that. Who does God say that I am? Who do I know myself to be when I actually remove all the external voices? So awaken physical body, A. L, listen to emotions. I, illuminate the spirit, truth. And then G is grow. And so in this 21 days, I offer a prompt for every single day. And it's a series of questions. I host retreats and in person events where we'll go through a whole slew of questions, and I'll just really draw people out to really help them get to know themselves. And so in terms of growth, the goal is to ask ourselves some challenging questions. How do we get beneath those layers to return to our core self? Why are we doing the things that we're doing? Why are we thinking the way that we are? And really analyzing our physical self, our emotional self, and even spiritual self. How am I viewing God? And is that something that I actually believe and have experienced to be true? Or is that something that was handed to me by way of someone else? And then N is navigate. How do I then take this lesson that I learned this morning and just apply it today? Again, it's not anything super intense, but navigate is throughout the rest of the day. So vertical alignment, you can get that if you're interested. 21 days just of moving through 21 emails. And if you sign up tonight, you'll get that tomorrow morning. And I just want to say this, I do branding and marketing. Like I have a branding and marketing business, and I hate selling. So just know if you you sign up for the vertical alignment, that's what you're going to get. You're not going to be getting other things. So because I hate that. Like I really put myself in the shoes of our customers, and I think that that's frankly what makes me a really good branding expert and marketer, is because I'm not I just hate salesy emails and things that don't feel relational. So all that to say, sign up if you want to. And actually, to that point, I asked one of my team members to create just a quick form. The last couple of days, people have been asking about meeting in person and doing some events together. So I wanted to create this form. If you guys want to join, you guys can just put in your information and put in your address, put in your name, not your address, but like your city, state, and then let me know if you want to do in person or virtual uh, gatherings. And I've been hosting knowing dinners over the last year and a half, and it's just a curated meal with like 9 of us. I haven't done more than 9 because it gets a little bit out of control. And so that's really just a time for us to, take one of those questions that shows up in vertical alignment for grow and go deep and get to know each other better and get to know ourselves better. Um, Sudan, oh, thank you so much for your note here. This is really meaningful. It really means a lot. I know that in the chat we have a lot of different conversations happening, but it is encouraging to hear your kindness. So thank you. This is really, knowing is the mission. It really, really is. It's what I feel so called to. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I've got my branding and marketing business, and helping tradesmen and women build their brands and build their companies, and serving as fractional chief marketing officer. It's all fun. I do love all of that. And this is what I just feel so called to, because I've seen what happens as the effect of not being emotionally healthy, as the effect of not being emotionally intelligent. Just like lives fall apart, families are destroyed and dismantled, and there's just so much grief and pain as a result of that. And so, when we talk about how to live life fully, know who you are. It's a fun journey. And by proxy, we get to know others all the more, and we get to know God all the more. And all of a sudden, there's just so much meaning at every turn. And there's a reason why we exist, because we suddenly get to know our calling. We get to know ourselves. And even yesterday, I saw it just before the show, so I'm going to actually take some time to prep for this. But in the form that I put in here, I asked the question, what are conversations that you'd like to have? And someone put down that they'd like to talk about effectively, how do you know your calling? So if you have any questions, please put them there, and I'd love to move through those and kind of use those as topics for our show, and move through that together. So please feel free to do that. Let me just go. Oh yeah, completely free. So yes, the vertical alignment. Yeah, it's just yeah, just put in your email and then I'll send you 21 days of emails. Honestly, it was something that I really wanted to do. I would host these knowing retreats for like 4 or 5 days with these executives, and I would give them vertical alignments every morning. And sometimes it was a group vertical alignment, sometimes it was a personal alignment for every single person based on just what I heard them share. And I would just personalize it for them to dig deeper in a specific area. And all of them were like, they're so helpful. So I was like, okay, let me make this a little bit bigger. So a friend of mine bought me the domain vertical alignment, and I was like, well, clearly I have to do something with this. And so I was like, let me create 21 days of vertical alignments as a gift. So I would love to hear your thoughts. Um, when will we change? Thank you for coming on here. Autodex, Peter, um, just where I give you my email. Okay, so if you go to, let me put this verticalalignment.com. Oh, sorry, my contacts just got super dried out. Verticalalignment.com. So if you fill that out there, and then in terms of you putting in any questions that you want to talk about on the show, this is the form. If you go to that form, I hope that these are coming through. I'm live on a couple different platforms, and so it looks like I'm posting it just to YouTube, but on Instagram, if you go to ChristeneMarie.com it's very long. Sorry. I'll fix the URL /knowing community /the knowing show. That's way too long. Um, Okay. Oh, I love this. Drew Young, such a good question. Wow. How do you know you are growing as a person? Man, that's such a good question. I When I came to kind of re-engage my relationship with intuition, I think that actually really helped me surface my relationship and connection to myself. And I started to pay attention to almost like the red flags. For almost 10 years, I just had lived so disconnected from myself that I couldn't hear my intuition. I didn't know red flags. I didn't hear the warning signs, which is like warning signs so often is like that bad feeling in your gut. But I didn't I was just also disconnected from my body too. Like I grew up in a very conservative religious environment. And so it was very constricted. Well, constrictive. That's not a word, but it should be constrictive. It was very dogmatic, and it was very honestly, I don't constrictive is not a word, but that's exactly what it was. It was very uh it was almost like tight. It was like so uh man, it's funny. It's like you're wearing a straitjacket. It's like don't show up. Don't have a body. Like the more you don't have a body, the better. Like even the men too. Like it was like no one should have a body. We're all just heads walking around, and and there was just a lot of shame there. And so because of that, and because of just I was in a relationship that was really not good for a number of years in my 20s, and so they were saying one thing and doing another. So there was some cognitive dissonance, and I chose to completely ignore my intuition and only trust their word, even though I just knew it wasn't right. So by ignoring and becoming disassociated with my physical body, and also ignoring the sensations that came up in me to say, hey, there's a red flag, there's a problem, and my own inner compass, my own inner wisdom, like the Latin root of intuition is intuere, which means to be taught from within. And I was silencing that. I was actually not just silencing it, I was shaming it and damning it. And so eventually it got quiet. It's like, who wants to be in a relationship where the other person completely ignores you? We'll leave. And so I felt like in some ways I actually really silenced my intuition, and it eventually just went completely quiet. And so one of the signs of growth for me has been to check in with intuition, and check in with my physical body, and like turn it online, and see like, okay, how am I feeling? How am I doing? And then another way and this is actually a question, if you guys are interested in this, at the Knowing Retreat, I hosted a retreat at the beginning of this month in Frederick, Maryland. And I had everybody, and I did this too. I texted those closest to us and I said, if you were actually, you know what? I might have the text here. Let me see if I can find it. I had everybody text this out this time and also another time. We effectively were asking the question to those closest to us. We said, hey, I am at this retreat and I'm being asked to effectively measure and give an account for when I'm most healthy. So we were getting a peer review. When am I most healthy? When am I not? What does health look like and what does unhealth look like? And then what percentage of the time am I healthy? Man is a mirror. It's hard and it's like the tough love. I think that a sign of growth is that we know the truth. We're constantly looking in the mirror and we're doing the work. And when I say doing the work, what I mean by that, the way I define it in my book is, actually doing the work is to trace the roots down to what is really really there. What's really going on? Asking why over and over again to get to the root. And then the second, like, kind of like part two is to curate a new foundation. If you don't like what's there, get rid of it, pull out those weeds. But we can't just leave it null and void. We have to intentionally curate a foundation and put something new in its place. And then the third is activating agency. Okay, now what does it look like to act upon and have real change? So the first kind of half of doing the work is the inner responsibility, it's the inner work. And then the second half is the external manifestation of that inner work. And it's activating agency. It's taking up the charge to walk fully in our power and walk fully in who was I created uniquely to be in the first place. Both of those pieces, the inner responsibility and the external agency, I just was so like blind, deaf, and dumb when it came to anything about me for the majority of my life up until a couple years ago. And so that first part was inner responsibility and looking in the mirror and doing that work. And frankly, I feel like I did that for about 2 years, just really intensely doing that. And over the last 2 years, I've now been focusing on like, okay, now that I know who I want to be vertically, how do I engage horizontally? How do I engage? What does health look like in relationship? Because I know what it looks like to be healthy alone. Now, how do I engage with the rest of the world in a healthy manner? And they look different. When I'm alone, that's a very different metric of health than in relationship. So, and when I say very different, an example of that is when I'm alone, what's most healthy for me, literally like physically alone, like I'm traveling or something, what's most healthy for me is to not be on my phone and not be watching shows or not be taking in a lot of inputs. But when I'm in a relationship, one of my favorite things to do with my dad is to watch a movie. And so there's just different metrics of health and having that tied in and just understanding what does it look like, not just for me in horizontal relationships, but what does it look like for me in this relationship and for me in this relationship. One of the things that was actually really helpful. So I know that I'm taking the long way here to your question because I think it's so important. One of the things that was so helpful was to define my key roles in my life with very specific people and then ask myself, what do I want it to look like in every single regard? What does success look like in my relationship with my dad? What does success look like for me as an employer? What does success look like for me as a vendor? What does success look like for me as a sister to my oldest sister Jen versus a sister to my brother Sam? How do I show up with each one of these people that I love so much, but frankly, each one of them is loved very differently. And that to me felt like a deepening of dimension surrounding the horizontal playing field. It's now no longer just how do I maintain my vertical alignment in relationship, but how do I maintain my health, my own sense of being. I need to plug in my computer. How do I maintain my own sense of being while in relationship with these folks that I really love who are very different from each other? So that when it comes to health, it's looking in the mirror for myself, activating intuition, activating agency, taking the inner responsibility, and then the external manifestations of that, asking other people, the people that I respect and care about, because doing that exercise, asking people, what does health look like for me and how often am I healthy? Weigh the responses carefully by those that you respect. I'll just say that. And then, yeah. doing the work to really actually audit your life and doing it on a regular basis. What does vertical alignment look like for you? What does success look like for you in these core categories of your life, relationally, financially, professionally? And then do that audit regularly. On this conversation with Robert Lee, James, I saw that you called him out. I love that. In this conversation with Robert Lee, it's really, really simple. This work. It's so simple, and yet it's so hard because it takes so much intentionality. We're now no longer allowed to live on autopilot. We're now no longer allowed, if we so choose, it's our choice, but we're now no longer allowing ourselves to live complacently. Like, that's part of the reason why I have a 20-minute timer on my phone for Instagram, because I don't want to scroll. I don't want to be on there and get lost, and I really want to be intentional with my time. So the value of intention, again, principle versus practice. What does the practice of intentionality look like for you? So that's a really, really good and gracious judge. What do I want in terms of how I show up, who I am, and how I live? And then am I practically living accordingly to achieve that? I wrote my eulogy when I turned 30, and that was a really good mirror for me. Am I actually living now to get to that point? Am I actually making the decisions and being brave where I need to be brave and saying no where I need to say no? Because there's a cost. There's a cost to living in alignment, and there's also a cost to not. What's the price of regret, and how much are we willing to pay for that versus the cost of discipline? Um, I'm just going back to the chat. When will we change? You said, am I just gonna embarrassingly leave this live? What did you do? I don't know what happened. Um, it's a delay. Oh, I just saw your chat. That was funny. Albert, good to see you. Thank you for joining. I'm just going down these chats. I just saw your note, Tyler. Very, very well could have been. That's really interesting. Sauce D up, Will. Have you changed boundaries with family? I ask because I changed that with that the most. Yes. I learned, someone actually said this to me, because in kind of like in the thick of learning how to have boundaries, I made a boundary with, actually, I just said to my family, I was like, I'm going offline for, I think it was like 3 days. I was like, I'm going offline. I'm turning off all my devices, and I'm checking out because I wanted to write. And within probably 2 minutes of sending that, I got a call from someone in my family. And I was like sitting there looking at my phone, like, how could they call me? Like, I just said I'm going offline. And I just felt, honestly, I felt really disrespected. I was like, like, are you blind? Like, are you deaf? Like, I just said this. And it was so interesting because it actually really bothered me. I had, for the most part, never said what I wanted or what I needed. None of us did growing up. Like, we were all so oriented towards each other and serving and loving. And just never were operating from a core place within of us in terms of like, I actually need to be quiet during the season, or I need a insert the blank of what you need. And so I said, kind of for the first time to my family, I need this space. And it felt like it was ignored literally within 120 seconds. And it really bothered me. And what I realized, one, me being triggered by the boundary being crossed was a mirror for me. And it really showed me how much power that family member had over me. Like, they could pull me out. It was 5 a.m. when I sent this note. At 5 a.m., I'm, 5:02, I'm activated. I'm upset. What a way to live the rest of my day. And that person, I've given them that much emotional power over me that they could come in and disrupt my morning to that extent. So one, my activation was a mirror for me. And two, I learned that the boundaries are actually for me to keep. But like David Hawkins talks about in his book of being able to effectively maintain your emotional numerical value at whatever state it is. So peace is level 600, fear or shame is level 50. And so if I'm at the level of peace all alone, and then all of a sudden I drop to level 150 or level 100, one, that person has a lot of power over me. And two, was I really peaceful to begin with, or was I just not activated? And so if the boundary is for me to keep, how do I then maintain peace while maintaining the boundary? I do not, I didn't answer the call, but I still allowed my peace to be, I dropped significantly emotionally when I got that phone call. And so when it comes to boundaries, so much of boundaries are actually meant to preserve and protect us for the purpose of love, for the purpose of community and connection. One of my friends I'm super, super close to. One of them I love so much, but I'm not as close to just because I've learned how they engage with the world. So, really, if I want to maintain these relationships, it's up to me to input the boundaries to protect me so that I can maintain a loving relationship with them rather than building resentment because I'm actually not taking care of myself. I think I hold a very unpopular opinion that so much of our lives and what happens is it's at the end of the day, it's our responsibility. And it's also very empowering if we believe that because now we're no longer victims. Now we actually have the power to choose and input and influence our life in a really beautiful way. And so, in one sense, we actually are our own protector. We actually are the parent that maybe we didn't have, or the parent who didn't know how to parent us when we were kids. So we're stepping into this role of caretaker when we start inputting boundaries, but for the purpose of love, for the purpose of connection, not just to be selfish and not just to blame everybody else for how unhappy we are or something like that. So I think that that isn't an unpopular opinion because what I see for the most part on social is talking about self love in a way that, frankly, it just feels selfish. It feels like it's cutting people off and keeping people out rather than I'm putting up this boundary so I can actually love better, so that I can be more impactful in my life, so that I can be more in alignment with who I feel called to be. So let me go ahead and just scroll down. Christopher Adams, good to see you. I love this. One of the eternal truths is your health is your real wealth. Ask yourself, what would 80-year-old you think or thank you for, I'm sorry, in terms of taking care of your body? I love that. What a good question, or what a good statement. What would 80-year-old you and me thank us for? Y'all, I got to tell you, when it comes to the health discussion, and I said this, I think this morning, I'd be really, or maybe it was last night, I'd be super curious if anyone's interested in having like a health conversation. Um, I'd love to have one with you because I want to know what you guys are doing to stay healthy. I My body, like, can tell the second I eat something that's not good for me, and I instantly don't feel good. Like, I get a headache, or I feel lightheaded, or I feel sick. And so, to your point, I just love that point, Christopher. What would 80-year-old us thank us for if we started adhering to that way of living accordingly? Um, Valeria, good to see you. Um, James, you said, "How did my dad wake up after his 20 minutes?" I think I might be far down. No, no, no. Okay, I'm not too far down. Um, he would, oh gosh, my dad is so wonderful. He would wake up refreshed. Like that was what he needed. And the thing that's so interesting, so for those of you who weren't here, we were talking about how effectively our energy dwindles through the day. And then we need to recharge if we want to be able to give to our family and the people that we're saying we're doing all this for anyways, working so hard for. And for him, the recharge was the nap. And he would just wake up like really, truly refreshed and like ready to go for the evening. Um, it was really remarkable. And my mom napped too. My mom actually, she did something different. She would have us all as kids take a rest time. And it was a time between like 2 to 3, 3 and 4 every day where it was like quiet time where we would all play individually. I mean, 6 kids. Now I don't have any kids of my own, but I'm looking at my parents and I'm like, y'all are literally rock stars. It's just so impressive. Alchem, oh, a chemical Skyline, good to see you. Good evening. Tommy Gun. Um, I just saw your note. That's so funny. Oh my gosh. Sun Moon, good to see you. You were on earlier today. Um, Melissa Adams, hey girl, good to see you. Um, Oh my. Tommy Gun's not being very nice. Polly, you're great. Let them circumvent always. I love that. Let them. Isn't that I think what is her name? Robin, Mel Robbins says that. Let them. So I will let them with some of the comments here. Thank you. I appreciate that reminder. Someone said something to me. They were like, when you see really like sometimes there's just some really mean stuff, and I don't want to not read the comments because honestly, we have such like so many of us, we're having such wonderful conversations. And there have been some things in there that have just been so hurtful. And my friend was like, that might just be a cry for love. Like maybe they're hurting. And so like hurt people hurt people. And so that was actually just a really good, it's like, oh, maybe just literally this morning, for those of you who joined for A Course in Miracles, every morning at 8:30 a.m. Eastern, we're going through a lesson every day from A Course in Miracles. And this morning, it was the lesson 21, because it's January 21, was I want to see differently. And I applied that a couple of times today. So I think even here in this moment, it's like, oh, I want to see that differently. And immediately, it's like right when I say that, I become a third party. And it's like, oh, maybe they just need a hug. All of a sudden, everything's not a big deal. Um, I'm just reading here. Sun Moon, it's something time cures, especially with father and mother siblings. What a good point. Polly, just be like, I see, or fair enough, and just sidestep rather than exchange. What a good point, man. Polly, you're coming in with some heavy hitters tonight. I think that is so wise to, it's just a sidestep. It's like, oh, let me just move out of the way. I really, really love that. That's really, really good advice. So if you feel like your boundaries are getting crossed, I think that that's a really good way to do that. And frankly, I think that that's a good way to maintain your emotional like peace. It's like, oh, you can think that, like let them, like you said. I really love that. Um Nay Grout, good to see you. Toasty, Sudan Manuel. Mm. Sudan says, as a Christian, for me, the love others as you love yourself part works, but loving myself is so difficult. Yes. I feel that so much, which is interesting because technically, it's like love your neighbors as yourself. It's almost predicated in the fact that you love yourself. Otherwise that wouldn't make any sense. Otherwise we would just hate everybody if we hated ourselves, if they assumed we hated ourselves. So it's like, what's missing? What is Why is it so hard? Like, why has it become so hard to love ourselves when the golden rule is based in that assumption that we love who we are and then we should love others accordingly? Sometimes I think about how far we've come from, when this effectively law of like natural law of order was given. And back then, people weren't on their phones and they didn't have this massive comparison stick. I think it was Theodore Roosevelt who said comparison is a thief of joy. In so many ways, it's like, what would make me be here in the present, happy with you all of a sudden I see someone else over there and I'm like, wait, and I start like wishing and wanting and desiring for something that I don't have. All of a sudden, I'm no longer here emotionally, mentally. I'm no longer here in the present moment to realize just how good it is. And I really have found presence is the cure and antidote to most anything, especially with gratitude. If we're implementing gratitude and pursuing gratitude and choosing that, we have the power of choice. So if I'm choosing gratitude, there's so much to be grateful for if I so choose. um, I love that. Yes, Christopher, you just said, love your neighbor as you love yourself. People tend to forget the second part as they mirror each other. To love yourself isn't veneration, but transparency and habitual acts of discipline. Y'all, that's a mic drop. I'm going to say that again. To love yourself isn't veneration, but transparency and habitual acts of discipline. Christopher, I think that that's what allowed for me to have such a good day today. It wasn't like sunshine and rainbows, but it was again, predictable, which is my word for this year, because I existed within the frame of discipline. And so I just, man, I think discipline is like, as Jocko Willink says, it equals freedom. And it's like the secret hidden weapon that each one of us has the opportunity to adopt. So should we so choose. Um, uh, just looking down here. Oh, Johnny, I completely agree. My mother was a saint. Oh, Drew, thank you. Man, you just made my night. Johnny, 6 kids, I know. Oh my gosh. Um, Sun Moon, best part of life is being alone with nature. Nothing like it. I love that. And frankly, how to live life fully, it's like I love everyone's kind of adding in there. That was part of the reason why I wanted to talk about this tonight, because I want to know from you, what does living life fully look like for you? I love that you said nature. Um, One of the things that I didn't mention earlier, we igniting the senses by way of a candle, by way of like visually, especially nature, audibly, even playing music, touch, having a warm, fuzzy blanket or something like that. Igniting the senses really grounds us into the present moment. And those so often are like the movie moments that we see that all of us have either a nostalgia for from the past or a desire for in the future that we can bring here and now. And it just takes a little bit of intentionality and creativity. So I love that. Uh, James, I love, okay, so I got to tell you, this is so funny. The way that I see emojis pop up, it's it's colon person dash turquoise dash writing dash headphones colon. And that's so boring. I can't see any of your emojis. It's so sad. Um, uh, Sarah DeBell. No, I'm sorry. I can't really. I feel like as the night goes on, my contacts are getting more and more blurry. um, Sarah Doll, it'll be good to see you. Thank you for joining us. Valeria, thank you for coming on here. Y'all, my contacts are dying, so I think this is my sign to go to sleep. Thank you all so much for joining me tonight on The Knowing Show. I'm going to drop this link one more time. If you all want to fill it out, just with different conversations that you all would like to have, if you don't have to, it's not required, but if you put in your city, state, and tell me if you'd like to do virtual or in-person events. I'm going to be building out kind of the roadmap for 2026, and I'm excited to do that. So, James, thank you. It's so fun to get to know you guys. Like, I'm seeing you guys on a regular basis, and so it's meaningful it's like we're becoming friends. I love it. Uh, Sarah Tall, I'm from Gaithersburg, Maryland. That's where I grew up. Right now, I'm in Virginia. Um, so I'm glad you're here. Brian, good night. Thank you all so much for joining. I'll see you tomorrow morning at 8:30 a.m. and we will go through A Course in Miracles. And so with that,